Happening. A good Monday to all of you. Hopefully you enjoyed your weekend. I appreciate you joining us as always. The biggest question this week, who is starting for the Patriots at quarterback in New York on Sunday? Biggest question we're going to talk about this week, and we talk about it today. And we really look at, when do we think Bill Belichick will make this decision? When will he decide if Mac Jones is truly done, at least for the next week or so? Will he decide that Bailey Zappe's the guy? When will that decision be made? When will we find out that the decision has been made? Bill O'Brien met with the media just a little while ago this morning, and he said what you would expect him to say. There's enough reps for two guys. Mac has played well. He's sure Mac will play well again. There's, more than one guy to blame for what's happened with the offense. And inevitably, O'Brien said it's Belichick's call. Belichick's going to make the call on the quarterback. My job is to prepare everybody for the game, and there's enough reps for two guys. So if you're thinking this is going to be a 3-horse race, it's not going to be. It's a 2-horse race. More on that in a little bit. What you have to ask is whether or not Belichick, over the bye week, found reasons to not make a change. Was there something that Belichick saw watching the film 2-3 times? Was there something that Belichick thought about during the week that he finally made that decision over the weekend and said, no, we're going to stick by Mac Jones? Was there something over the last week or so that would have changed Belichick's mind? Because remember, the last time we saw this team play, Mac was pulled at the end of the game. We know how it ended in Germany, but Bill Belichick made the decision to pull the starting quarterback for the final drive of that game, threw Bailey Zappe in for the 2-minute drill, ended in disaster. Usually, when a coach makes that kind of decision, then the starting quarterback is not going to be out there the next week or in 2 weeks when they play, especially when the head coach has made that decision multiple times this year. He has pulled Mac Jones, 3 times this season? So was there something over the last week that would cause Belichick to change his mind from the decision he made in Germany? And when will he make that call? Mike Reese over the weekend wrote this at ESPN.com. Belichick has slow played a decision on who will start. One player privately said it would be helpful to know which direction the team is going, allowing everyone to rally around the pick, and perhaps will come when players return from meetings on Monday. Again, so that's today. Has a decision been made? Has Belichick told the players a decision has been made? The team's first practice is tomorrow. When do you make the call? I mean, for me, I would have made the call after that interception and after that report that Mac Jones has lost 80% of the locker room, if that report is true. Again, I always have to throw that caveat in. I believe what Andrew Callahan wrote. I believe Callahan was told that Mac has lost 80% of the locker room. But was the person talking to Andrew Callahan giving him factual numbers, accurate numbers? We have no idea. Was there a poll in the locker room to find out if 80% of the guys can't stand Mac? We don't know. But after that dreadful interception against the Colts in the red zone, followed up by those stories from first Mike Giardi, then Andrew Callahan, then others have reported that Mac is not beloved in the locker room right now. Not as far as if they like him or not personally, but the guys look at Mac and believe that he is hurting them. And it's tough to disagree with that, right? After seeing Mac play going back to the Dallas game. So I would have made the call already. This call would have been made. I would have said that putrid interception against the Colts, combined with the feeling in that locker room, Mac cannot start against the Giants. I'm not writing him off for the rest of the year, but I would not have started Mac against the Giants this weekend based off of those two things. Now, maybe Belichick doesn't agree that 80% of the locker room is out on Mac. Maybe Belichick has talked to the players. Maybe the players have approached Belichick. Maybe the players have approached the coaching staff. Maybe guys have talked with Bill O'Brien. Maybe there's a feeling that Mac Jones is not wasted in that locker room right now. I don't know. I'm just telling you, from what I saw against Indianapolis and from what I read last week, I would not start Mac against the Giants. That's what my decision would be. Is it going to be Belichick's? I'm not so sure. I mean, if Mac hasn't lost the room, then we have to look at this a couple of different ways. If Mac hasn't lost the room, then Mac could start. I don't think it's out of the question. I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but I don't think Bill's looking at this and says unequivocally Mac is out if the locker room hasn't given up on the guy. If there's still some belief in that room that Mac gives them the best chance to win, if there's some belief in that room that Bailey Zappi and Will Grier are even worse than Mac Jones from what they've seen at practice, if the coaching staff is looking at Mac and saying, look, he is the best guy we have in that room right now, not because he's great, but because the room is so bad. These are conversations that have been happening all year long. They're conversations that have been happening since that Dallas game. And we've seen Belichick consistently stand by Mac Jones. Could be a number of different reasons for that. We don't know. But I look at Belichick, and how I feel is that Belichick has been playing Mac Jones because he has seen enough of Zappi and Grier at practice to know that those guys, yes, as crazy or as hard to believe as it may be, Belichick believes Grier and Zappi do not give you a better chance to win a football game than Mac does. And the reason why I feel like that's why Belichick's been playing Mac is because Belichick's trying to win football games. He's chasing Shula. He doesn't want to be embarrassed. I don't think he wants to move zip codes. He's in his 70s. He has this organization built exactly the way he wants it built. So I don't think Belichick was like dying to leave this organization at the beginning of the year. I think Belichick is trying to win games. I think that is ingrained in him. That's who he is. And he is inevitably going to play the guy that he thinks gives them the best chance to win. This idea that Robert Kraft is walking down into his office and telling him to play Mac, I just don't believe it. First of all, there's been no reporting of that. Second of all, Kraft would not even get involved at the trading deadline. And third of all, the long history between Belichick and Kraft is that Kraft does not get involved in football decisions. The only decision that we know of, football-wise, that Kraft got involved with had to do with Brady and Garoppolo. And again, that's because Brady was the greatest of all time. When you're talking about the GOAT, yes, the owner in that instance might step in and say, we're not doing this, we're doing that. But in this case, I think Belichick has full autonomy. He's going to start the guy that he wants to start. I don't think he's being told to start somebody. I just don't believe that's the case. Could be wrong. Don't believe it. So if Mac hasn't lost the room, yes, Mac Jones could start against the Giants. And apparently Will Grier doesn't really have a shot. Mike Reese wrote this: Belichick seemed to hint that number 3 quarterback Grier would not be considered. He said of Grier on the Patriots All Access television show, quote, when you're new and haven't been here in training camp and had the full background of OTAs and a chance to run our core players, it's a lot to catch up on. Will has done a good job of it. There's no issues with him. It's just there's only so many snaps out there. So between that comment from Belichick on Patriots All Access and Bill O'Brien said, hey, there's only enough snaps for 2 guys, I don't think Will Grier is leapfrogging anybody in the pecking order. I think this is Mac versus Zappi. And by the way, that comment by Belichick bothers me. Why did you release Bailey Zappi then? If you go off of what Belichick said, when you're new and haven't been here in training camp and had the full background of OTAs and a chance to run our core plays, it's a lot to catch up on. Then why did you release the backup quarterback right before the season started, Bill? Why? You would think that'd be too much to catch up on, right? You just told us that. So why would you drop your QB2? Even if he did stink, why would you drop him right before the season? You're telling us, you're fixing your lips to tell us that putting anybody in that position right as the season begins is a losing proposition. So why did you release Bailey Zappi? It makes no sense off of what he said to Patriots All Access. 0 sense. By the way, why is Cunningham not getting involved here then as QB3 emergency situation if Grier has no shot? I know Cunningham's been practicing as a wide receiver, and I've been talking about that. There's little chance that he's going to play quarterback. We've gone through this, but Cunningham knows the playbook. Cunningham has been here since camp. So if that's the difference, and I'm not telling you Will Grier would be good. Again, he's been awful when he's had the opportunity. Last time he played was 2019, and he wasn't good. This is not a guy who's in his early 20s. He's in his late 20s. But if this is all about who knows the playbook and who can get caught up quicker, wouldn't you believe that that would be Malik Cunningham and not Will Grier, because Cunningham's been here through the camp, through the preseason? Again, none of it makes sense. Mac seems to be alive in this. And I would imagine that Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones will split the reps this week. Will it be Zappi getting all the reps with the ones and Mac not getting the reps with the ones and playing with the twos? I don't know. Will it be Mac and Zappi literally alternating between series with the ones? I have no idea. But from what Bill O'Brien said today, from what I've heard Mike Reese on the radio say, and Phil Perry has talked about this, and Tom Curran has talked about this, from people that have been covering this team on a day-to-day basis, they have all warned people out there, Mac Jones is not dead yet. The idea of playing Mac is still out there on the table. And by what Reese wrote over the weekend, he's a very connected guy, and Reese doesn't just throw stuff up against the wall. So, yes, I do believe that Mac Jones has a chance to start against the Giants. Will he? I'm not sure. But I do think this decision is tougher than a lot of us believe that it should be or could be. I don't think either guy gives you a great chance to win, by the way, anyway. I mean, maybe this weekend against the Giants because, I mean, they're so bad. I know they won yesterday, but Washington had 6 turnovers. The Giants had 0. That's why the Giants won that game yesterday. It wasn't because they found something. Washington turned the ball over 6 freaking times. So the Patriots could win this game this weekend. They're favored by Vegas to win the game. But when we look at this long-term picture here, at least within this season, when we look at the next 7 games, I don't think Mac or Bailey give you a great chance to win. And by the way, if Mac Jones does play this weekend, then he's starting the rest of the year. Because what's the point? If he plays against the Giants, then you're playing him the rest of the year. If you're not going to play Zappi or Grier this week, then you're not going to play those guys. I mean, maybe unless Mac goes out there and throws like 5 picks and is even worse than what we've seen. Just don't see it. I just don't see any reason to start anybody else other than Mac Jones if you start Mac this weekend. All right, Cattle's on Causeway, live post-game podcast coming up on Wednesday night following the Bucks game. You want to follow along here on YouTube, also on the socials. So we'll do that on Wednesday night, immediately following the Bucks, right before your Turkey Day. Gobble, gobble. Coming up, should we be questioning the projected top quarterback in this year's draft? We'll get to that. But I remind you, give us that thumbs up. If you like the content, if you like what we do here, give us that thumbs up on YouTube. Thumbs up means more eyeballs. We need all of those likes that we can get. Comment. What do you think the Patriots should do at quarterback this weekend? I'm guessing many of you think they should start Zappi or Grier over Mac. Your thoughts on this decision. And don't forget to subscribe. All right, let's look at the draft here for a minute. Caleb Williams is projected to be the number 1 guy by most people. Quarterback, USC, off schedule, off platform kind of quarterback, very strong arm. There have been comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, which I hate. I always feel like it's very unnecessary and unfair to a young guy being compared to a great like that. I'm not going to make those comparisons. I will say that, again, his ability to kind of run around, scramble, make plays out of nothing, it will remind you of a quarterback like Mahomes, of other quarterbacks that make plays off platform and off schedule. And when it comes to Caleb, you know, I didn't go crazy after him crying in the postgame when he lost to Oregon. You know, yeah, it was very emotional, and you don't see that every day. But I didn't judge him off of that one moment. Look, everybody has a moment, right? Everybody has a moment in their life. You get a little bit of emotion going on, and you don't really know why sometimes. You just get emotional. And I looked at that as, hey, maybe it was a heat of the moment disappointment thing, right? That he had hit his low and he's still a young man. He was overcome with emotion, overwhelmed by it, and literally jumped into the stands to go see his mother. Again, it's a very unique thing. And I do think that guys look over at him when that's happening and wonder, all right, well, why is it that impactful? you could look at it and say it's a good thing that it was that impactful. So I didn't really judge Caleb Williams off of the heat of the moment disappointment. But when you're the Patriots and you're looking at adding a franchise quarterback at the tippity top of the draft, you've got to make sure that that guy is the guy. You have to walk into that pick as if you have zero questions about that human being, whether it's on the field or off the field. So when I look at the post game crying after the Oregon game, all right, heat of the moment. Then you had the post-game press conference after that game, after Caleb had an opportunity to calm down, think about things, sort it out in his brain, and talk to the media. And he decided to kind of just walk into the media room, hunch over at the microphone next to his teammates and say, I just want to go home. I just want to see my dog. That was his post-game reaction after having some time. And then you start to think about it. Okay. Maturity, leadership, is it there? The crying thing, I got through. The post-game press conference after the crying, not good. And then this weekend, after losing to UCLA, Caleb Williams decided to no-show the media. He no-showed. He bailed. A failure to take responsibility and accountability for his role with this team losing more than it was expected to lose. It's the last time probably, because I don't think he's going to play a bowl game. It's very likely the last opportunity for Caleb Williams to leave an imprint on his football team, teammates, that whole program at USC, the head coach Lincoln Riley. This was his opportunity to address a lot of things and to, throw flowers, throw a bouquet at the coaching staff on his way out to be a nice guy. Talk about his team glowingly to give them some confidence moving forward after a very disappointing season. It was his chance to stand up in that room, especially after the Oregon game. After what happened in that Oregon post game, this was your chance to stand up and speak, and you bailed. You no-showed. That's ridiculous. You are supposed to be the leader of your football team. You are seen as the number one pick in this draft. You're seen as one of the best players in college football, and you don't have it within you to do a post-game press conference after likely your last game. And so that, to me, when you put all of that together, the crying in the stands, the post-game press conference against Oregon when it's, I just want to go back home to my dog, and then no showing a press conference and doing a post-game after losing to UCLA, you put all of that together, and I do think this is something that if you're the Patriots or any other team in the NFL at the top of that draft, right, whether it's Chicago or the Giants, whoever it is, Arizona, whoever it is, if you're at the top of the draft and you are going to spend the top pick on a quarterback, this is something that you have to think very deeply about. And even if you're a top 5 team in the draft, even if you're the Patriots and you're sitting there at 3 or 4 and Caleb Williams falls to you, well, number one, why did he fall to you? Number two, what do you think about what you've seen from Caleb? Is he mature enough? Is he mature and willing to lead and grow in that role as he gets older and takes over your program? And I think this is a legitimate, major question about Caleb Williams now. I've seen enough. Once, okay. Twice, 3 times, we got a problem. We have a problem. You have to hit on Caleb Williams if you're drafting him in the top 3, top 2, top 1, top 5. You have to hit on that pick. You miss on that pick, your organization is set back for another 5, 6, 7 years. And you have this conversation about the skill and the talent level versus the it factor. When you're the quarterback, you are the leader of men. That is what that position is. You lead those guys in the locker room. That's why when the Mac Jones stuff came out last week, and the reports were that, 80% of the locker room is out on Mac, I said, there's no way you can start that guy. Because when you lose the team, you lose your job at that position. So, when you're the quarterback, when you're supposed to be the number one guy in the draft this year, and you're no-showing press conferences, and you're walking into a post game talking about, I just want to go see my dog. That is not what a quarterback is expected to do. You're supposed to stand up and take the bullets and say, this was on me. I needed to be better. You need to take the accountability and the responsibility. And if you're ducking post-game press conferences in college, how are you going to react in the NFL, especially when you're going to get drafted by a team at the top of the draft, which means, guess what? They suck this year. How are you going to handle that kind of situation? And especially if it's in a market like New York or like Boston, are you going to be able to handle that kind of market? Are you going to be able to handle the criticisms? Are you going to be able to handle the questions if you lose by 3 touchdowns on a Sunday? You can't just run away in the NFL. You can't run away from your post-game responsibilities. How are you going to handle that? There's been criticism about Mac and his emotion and his lack of leadership. You bring in Caleb Williams, you have those questions all over again. Do you want to go from Mac to a guy that has those kinds of questions surrounding him? It's a very, very iffy scenario. It's going to be, a very difficult transition with any team if you're Caleb Williams. Because that team, again, wasn't good, especially here in New England. You got a tough market. You just swung and missed on a first-round quarterback if you're deciding to move on from Mac and you're drafting a guy in the top 3. That guy has to come in. He's replacing Mac Jones. Fans have a nasty taste in their mouth regarding the quarterback position. Tough market to play in, and you've shown no ability over the last few weeks to stand up and be that guy. If you're the face of the franchise, you're the face of the franchise. You can't run away. I mean, how ready to compete is a roster going to be when he walks into the room? What is Caleb Williams doing? How's he reacting? Is he reacting if you have a 6-11 season? Do the other guys believe in him? I'll tell you what, whether it's right or wrong, if you jump into a crowd and cry into your mother's arms in the NFL, guys are going to feel a certain way about that. I'm not writing Caleb Williams off, but you have to look into this and you have to take this seriously because this is a red flag. You can't allow your face of the franchise to be a guy who cannot face the music. All right, lots of other news over the weekend. Big updates coming up for you. Don't forget, give us that thumbs up on the YouTube channel. It helps us an awful lot as we try to build this community up. Give us that thumbs up. Don't forget to comment your thoughts on Caleb Williams. Big deal, no big deal with him getting so emotional and then ducking press conferences. And finally, don't forget to subscribe. A few other nuggets here in Boston I wanted to get to. Jaylen Brown tweaked his groin on Friday night in Toronto. Thankfully, Brown played last night in that ugly game in Memphis. But this is all just the BS in-season tournament stuff. And my friend Brian Robb at Mass Live wrote about this over the weekend. Jaylen Brown and everybody else slipping and sliding on that floor Friday night, it's not an isolated incident. And B-Rob wrote about it. One tournament court in Dallas was actually taken out of use after a single game due to a manufacturing issue. Zach Lowe of ESPN said earlier this year that the NBA decided to rush these courts, these new look courts. They decided in the summer that they were going to do this, and they had to rush these new courts into production this fall. What the hell are we doing? Player safety is the number one priority here. I don't care how fancy pants or different or unique the courts look. If the guys are slipping and sliding and they're in danger of getting hurt, then those courts are meaningless. You had to rush it out there so people can go, ooh, look at the colors. I mean, what is the logic behind that? You got to be concerned about your player safety. Jaylen Brown is a top 25 player in the NBA. And fortunately, he didn't completely tear his groin off the bone when he did a split in Toronto because of your suck-ass court. It's reckless if this continues and you don't do anything about it. And I don't know if it was just reckless to allow this to happen or the NBA did not put enough thought into it. Maybe being reckless is not putting enough thought into it. But what are we doing with this? You couldn't just tweak the center court logo? What's wrong with putting that tournament cup behind every logo of an NBA floor and roll that out there for the in-season tournament games? Just change the center court piece. Leave the rest of the court alone. No, we got to make it different. We got to make it dramatic. And does anyone care about this in-season tournament? Honestly, I don't. I don't care about this in-season tournament. It doesn't impact me in any way. Maybe I'll feel different when it's the in-season tournament final in Vegas if the Celtics get there, but I couldn't care less about this in-season tournament. It has no impact on the actual postseason. It has no impact on the actual championship. I don't care. Maybe in a year or two they'll sell me on it, but right now I couldn't care less about it. All right, some Red Sox news. Luis Urias was traded. Yes, it happened. He goes to the Mariners. Jen McCaffrey of The Athletic. Shortly before the non-tender deadline, Red Sox traded Urias to the Mariners for Isaiah Campbell. Campbell, 26 years old, right-handed pitcher, bullpen guy, 2.83 ERA last year, 27.5% strikeout rate, and 27 appearances. So he has some good numbers. One of 8 rookies last season to make at least 25 appearances and post an ERA below 3. In 61 minor league games, including 4 starts, he posted a 2.01 ERA. Now, I don't know if Campbell's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be terrible. All I know is this return is much better than I anticipated for Luis Urias. I did not think the Red Sox would get much of anything in return for Urias, but here we are. Pretty good return considering who you're sending out. Also, Aaron Nola ended up re-signing with the Philadelphia, I almost called them Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia Phillies. So Nola's back in Philly. He reportedly signed for less than was offered to him from other teams. And now for the Red Sox, even more pressure. The pressure to sign Yamamoto increases exponentially now. Exponentially. And Yamamoto's posting process begins today. Teams can officially put their post bids in today for Yamamoto, and you don't get Nola. I think you have to look. I'm sure you were thinking about this even before the Nola decision, but if you're the Red Sox, you have to go all in on Yamamoto. You have to do whatever you can. You have to spend whatever you have to spend to bring in a top-notch front of the rotation arm. We've been through Yamamoto before in prior podcasts. The guy's in his mid-20s. He's entering into his prime. He's got nasty secondary stuff. The numbers are there. Scouts think he's better than Senga. One scout thinks, according to the New York papers, that he's a full grade better than Senga. You've got to do everything you can to bring in Yamamoto if you're Craig Breslow. And John Heyman, the New York Post, wrote about Yamamoto's West Coast preference. Here's what he wrote. Yankees and Mets, they suggest they lend no credence to rumors Yamamoto may have a preference for the West Coast. The vast majority of teams known to be in on the pitcher are in the East and Central divisions. Heyman writes, the Red Sox, Cardinals, Braves, Phillies, Dodgers, Astros, and possibly Cubs are among the teams prioritizing a number 1 starter. And by the way, yes, the Phillies still are reportedly wanting a number 1 guy. They're not stopping after Nola. John Paul Morosi, the MLB Network, said that the Sox might have an edge because of Yamamoto's relationship with Yoshida. I'm all in on Yamamoto. As far as Shohei Ohtani, there have been reports that the Red Sox are one of the teams that are in on Ohtani. Jeff Passan of ESPN said that the MVP has expressed affinity for certain teams and cities in the past, and Ohtani loves visiting Boston. He has a fondness for Fenway Park. John Morosi said that Ohtani is probably less concerned about geography and more concerned about the quality of the team he is going to go to. And John Heyman, again, New York Post, said Red Sox are among a handful of teams linked to varying degrees. Now, it's hard for me to believe that the Red Sox would get both Ohtani and Yamamoto, but hey, I'm not against it. Not a bad idea. All right, we'll end this podcast on a down note, and I wanted to save this thing for last because I did not want to begin the pod or do this in the middle of the podcast just because it's an awkward, tough, difficult story. Milan Lucic is on an indefinite leave of absence from the Bruins. He is facing assault and battery charges after an arrest over the weekend. Tiffany Chan of WBC, she said that the wife of Lucic called 911 and alleged that she was attacked and choked by Lucic. Again, that's WBZ's Tiffany Chan. The wife alleging that Lucic attacked and choked her. Lucic does have a domestic violence situation on his record back in 2011. And obviously, if there's any truth to this, he's gone. To me, it's simple. It's clean, cut, and dry. If there is any truth to this, he's out. And I think he'll be out of the NHL. So just a terrible story. Hopefully his wife and family are okay. But again, this goes beyond hockey. Couldn't care less about the dude's hockey career. If this is true, he's got to go. All right, that'll do it for the Nick Cattle Show today, the Monday edition. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Rate and review on Spotify and Apple Pods. Until tomorrow, enjoy yourself.